Every deal has three prices: the one you name, the one you pay, and the one that follows you home. The job started over Vrykul prime planet of rust, syndicate factories, and people who vanish when they ask the wrong questions. Names: Corvin Fox, independent smuggler, ex-syndicate courier, flying a patched-up crate called the Rust Runner, one bad decision away from scrap. All I had to do was haul Vrykul artifacts to Umbra Nox, hand them off to a Nekrith fence and a Thalvirith clan operative, and not get shot. Then the hunters arrive, the deal turns into a percentage negotiation under plasma fire, and I learn every job has a price that follows you home. Rust and shadows. Every deal has three prices: the one you name, the one you pay, and the one that follows you home. I should have known which price I was paying when I cleared Vrykul Prime. The planet filled half my viewport, a rust-orange wound wrapped in industrial smog and broken metal. The Iron Graveyard. From orbit, the scrap basin glittered like a halo made of knives, ancient ship frames, discarded modules, syndicate junk drifting in tight loops. 3 Vrykul artifacts sat in my cargo hold, sealed in armored crates and humming like they were unhappy about being moved. The Rust Runner didn't like them either. I could feel a faint vibration in the deck. Clean pickup, no double cross, no armed escort. I slid into the pilot's couch. Definitely too easy. If a job on Vrykul Prime didn't try to kill you, it meant the invoice was waiting. My transponder currently read as Hadris Vaughn, licensed ore courier. Honest, hardworking, boring. The kind of ship nobody looked at twice. Course plotted, the runner's nav chimed. Outbound to local subspace cut, then alignment to Umbra Nox corridor. I dragged us out of parking orbit with a gentle burn. The runner was a modified light freighter, emphasis on modified, sensor baffles, jammer arrays, a rift generator rated for ships 3 times her mass. She moved like a speck of rust in a storm. Every high G turn risked something important falling off. We fell into our outbound path, slipping around ore carriers waiting for clearance. For a minute, almost peaceful. The threat board pinged. 4 contacts breaking formation from the patrol grid, heat blooms spiking. Glass me, I breathed. I killed the automatic and shoved the throttle forward. The runner's engines howled, redlining as we peeled away from our corridor. Inertial dampers lagged, my stomach tried to slide out through my spine. Blue-white fire lanced past the cockpit and clipped our starboard bow. Shields dropped to 68%. 30 seconds to intercept, the runner said. I yanked the yoke left, threading between 2 hunks of spinning metal. A Syndicate interceptor overshot in a bright smear. 4 of them. Local bounty detail. My face was still on enough boards that alive wasn't guaranteed. Runner, bring the rift generator online. Warning. Subspace rift creation within high-traffic orbital shell is. Do it anyway. Another barrage tore past. Shields, 52%. I smelled ozone and hot metal. A fuse popped behind my chair. The rift generator status bar crept upward, an angry yellow arc. Running it under weapons fire was like juggling plasma grenades over an open fuel leak. Ahead, broken towers, skeletal frames, the remains of some ancient orbital platform twisted into a jagged sea. The kind of place a smart pilot avoided. I wasn't a smart pilot. I took us straight in. Sensor echoes, metal shadows, navigation warnings. I juked through gaps with meters to spare, the runner screaming every time I rolled 30 degrees and slammed lateral thrust. Behind us, one interceptor clipped a chunk of forge tower and went end over end. Threat board dropped to 3. Generator at 87%. Something started to rattle deep in the deck. The debris thinned. Clear view of starfield. Now, I snapped. Space tore open in front of us, a smear of darkness and red static crackling like exposed nerves. Gravity lurched sideways. Another salvo slammed our shields. 40%. I punched the engines and let the runner fall. Subspace swallowed us whole. Subspace hit like always. Wrong colors, wrong physics, gravity pulling in 3 directions at once. The cockpit dimmed, filters keeping my eyes from locking onto things human brains weren't supposed to process. Subspace transition complete, the ship said. External conditions, turbulent. I gripped the yoke and rode the first punch of distorted gravity. Vision narrowed. Blood tried to exit my skull. Cargo restraints groaned, something heavy. One of the artifact crates slammed into its rack with an echoing crash. Subspace currents showed as a tangle of red and white lines on the nav display, flexing like living things trying to tear our path apart. 3 pursuit signatures entering subspace. Figures. Let's see how many know how to swim, I muttered. A gravity shear loomed ahead, a hard kink in the current, like a jagged rock in a flood. I dipped us under it, rolling into the trough beneath just as it twisted. Gravity went sideways. My body tried to leave the couch. Something overhead showered sparks. Behind us, one pursuit icon slipped into the shear's edge. Its signature flared, then vanished. 2 pursuit signatures remain. Music to my ears. My hands were sweating. I forced my grip to loosen. Subspace was chaos, but there were patterns. Warm spots where currents converged, cold voids where they tore apart. I couldn't explain how I felt them, only that I did. Search for hyperspace corridor intersections. Preference, Umbra Nox band. Scanning. A new line appeared, a bright, stable curve cutting across the madness. A hyperspace current. Nearest corridor, HXUMB4. Course alignment requires deviation of 32 degrees and traversal of high turbulence zone. Risk factors, extreme. Story of my life. Plot us in. Between us and the corridor lay stacked gravity wells, cross-cutting like a nest of blades. Corvin Fox, a voice crackled through the calm. I flinched. Nobody out here was supposed to know that name. Patch him through. Static gave way to a man's voice, distorted but steady. Calm. Amused. You left without paying your tab. Rude. Pretty sure I settled with the bar, I replied. If they're charging extra for the glassware I broke 3 years ago, tell them to take it up with my accountant. Your accountant is dead. Syndicate memo. Shows what I get for outsourcing. Designation W7, the runner whispered. Call sign Wraith. Syndicate recovery operative, Tier 2. Of course it was Wraith, the Syndicate's favorite bloodhound. Last I heard, he'd volunteered for half a dozen neural mods just to get better at tracking people like me. Corvin, Wraith went on. You know how this ends. You drop the cargo, cut power, and let us take you in. You live long enough to regret it. Or you make this messy, and Slab gets bored and starts decorating subspace with your hull. My eyes drifted to the other remaining signature. Slab, heavy. In regular space, that meant something large with big guns. In subspace, it meant something large, sluggish, and more likely to be shredded if the currents got ugly. I looked at the hyperspace junction marker. 8 seconds to the turbulence zone's edge. Runner, give me maximum vectoring authority. Override caution protocols. Confirmed. Note, this may void your warranty. Noted. The turbulence hit like a fist. Intersecting currents, all wanting me dead. The runner lurched. Forward view dissolved into streaked chaos. Ship's frame juddered like it was being twisted from both ends. I stopped looking at displays and let my hands move. Left, rolling with a gravity spike. Up, riding the rebound into a narrow gap. Micro thrusters fired in rapid succession. A panel popped loose and swung on a cable, spitting sparks. My shoulders slammed into the restraints. Behind us, Slab's icon flickered wildly. Big ship, small finesse. Flare, then nothing. Icon winked out. 1 pursuit signature remains. The hyperspace corridor marker loomed ahead. Get the angle wrong, and we'd be flung into some other part of subspace. Get it right, and we'd slingshot halfway across the galaxy. The last current hit from below. The runner hung, nose up, fighting drag. I slammed the throttle to full and twisted us hard into the vector path. The corridor caught us. Hyperspace was a rail tightly controlled, brutally fast. Acceleration punched me back into the couch. Dampers screamed, vision tunneled. Black crept in at the edges, hands going numb. G-force overload, the runner reported distantly. Shut up. The world squeezed down to a narrow tunnel of dim light and popping noise. I hung right on the edge of blackout, able to feel every violent heartbeat. Then the pressure eased. Vision crawled back. Cockpit, controls. Faint, shimmering line of the hyperspace current outside. Transition stable. Velocity, high relativistic. Estimated time to Umbra Nox intercept, 2 hours, 17 minutes. I sagged back, muscles trembling, sweat cooled. Threat board still showed one red icon. Wraith had made the jump. Range? Pursuit signature at 15,000 kilometers and falling behind slowly. I watched the icon. Wraith had better hardware but couldn't keep up forever on this band. Any firing solutions? Negative. Current geometry precludes effective weapons usage. So he can't hit me and he can't keep up. I let out a breath. Almost feels like good news. Time stretched. Hyperspace offered little scenery, just steady humming blue-white blur. I checked systems. Shields regenerating, 50% and climbing. Hull integrity technically within tolerances, but stress readings along the port side made my teeth itch. Rift generator sat at sullen orange. Overheated. Next emergency jump would come with risk of detonation. Runner, scan hull for foreign attachments, mines, beacons. Initiating localized scan. Wraith's icon slid further back. 30,000 kilometers. 40. 50. Aft hull reads clear. No foreign devices detected within standard scan resolution. A ghost warning flickered across the status board. Something in the auxiliary systems. A microspike in background traffic. Gone before I could focus on it. Old Syndicate firmware, probably. The runner had been theirs once, before I'd scrubbed her clean. Sometimes a ship's bones remember who owned it first. My gut unclenched by degrees. Wraith's icon blinked out as his ship finally lost the corridor and dropped into raw subspace. Pursuit signatures, 0. Looks like the tab will have to wait. Somewhere between one system check and the next, hyperspace spit us out. Real space dropped into place with a bone-deep lurch. Umbra Nox filled the viewport. Umbra Nox never looked like a real planet. Most worlds gave you color from orbit. Umbra Nox gave you absence, a black sphere hanging in the starfield, barely limned by the distant glow of Nox Eterna, its dead star. No sunlight, no reflection. Veins of bioluminescence traced the surface like a slow pulse. Forest canopies lit from within, rivers of faint blue and green snaking through invisible ravines. Above it all, the grave belt circled like a broken halo. Umbra Nox system, the runner intoned. Control authority, Imperium of Scythe. Orbital defense network, active. On Umbra Nox, you didn't freelance your landing zone unless you wanted orbital guns to vaporize you. Traffic control channel? Standing by. A voice slid into the cockpit, smooth, clipped, distant echo of surveillance arrays. Unidentified craft, you are entering regulated space. Transmit identification, cargo class, and destination. I flicked to the forged transponder. The runner's ID cycled from my usual dirty profile to something clean, a small trade vessel with Imperium export permits and no connection to the Syndicate or Corvin Fox. This is cargo hauler, Morrow's Wake. Low-volume tech transfer, parts and recyclables. Transmitting codes now. Silence stretched. Cross-referencing against blacklists, customs flags, quiet lists. Codes received. Your authorization is provisional. You are cleared for descent to surface port UNOX ASP-3. Deviation from assigned corridor will result in lethal response. Acknowledge. Loud and clear. Maintain vector and velocity. Autonomous guidance will be applied. Do not override. The channel cut. Accept guidance, I said. The runner dipped, bringing Umbra Nox's vast curve up to swallow the viewport. Atmospheric interface hit like a slow punch. Hull trembled, heat blooming dull red along the nose. Through the haze, port lights came into view. Platform 3 was a wound in the dark. An armored crater sliced into the planet's skin, ringed with docking towers and shield pylons. Landing beacons marked the pads. Approach corridor locked. Deviation tolerance, 0.3 degrees. We came in on a shallow arc. Autopilot flared the engines. The runner's struts unfolded with a shudder, and we dropped the last meter with a solid thud. Touchdown. Welcome to Umbra Nox. I sat there, hand still wrapped around the yoke. My body buzzed with leftover adrenaline. 1. I'd made it past Syndicate pursuit. 2. I'd made it past Imperium orbital guns. 3. I was now parked on a planet where night never ended, holding 3 crates of artifacts that at least 2 major factions would kill to own. The port's customs handshake pinged my fake credentials. Progress bar crawled. Inspection flag, routine. Customs assessment, minor irregularity. Recommended response, discretionary payment. The message came through. Polite, encrypted suggestion that my documentation might be expedited for a small administrative override fee. I keyed in the bribe, wincing as a chunk of my paycheck evaporated. Override accepted. Birth status, cleared. Surface access, authorized. Cargo review, waived. I stood, every bruise from subspace and gravity suddenly very interested in my opinion. Ribs ached, hot line along my left shoulder. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the couch, a scuffed dark thing with too many pockets and a tear in one sleeve I kept meaning to fix, and shrugged it on. The fabric pulled against sore muscles. I grunted and rolled my shoulder until it settled. Lock down the crates. No one opens that hold but me. Internal security protocols engaged. Warning, local authority override is theoretically possible. Let's hope today's one of the days they're too bored to bother. I palmed the hatch release. Cold air rolled in, carrying metallic taste and something else underneath. Damp stone, ozone, a whisper of bioluminescence that managed to smell like old moss and charged dust. Nisara's instructions: dock at ASP-3, clear customs, follow specific elevators and lower-level transit lines to a service junction. I took one last look at the cockpit, at my reflection in the darkened viewport, a little older than I liked to admit, a little more tired around the eyes. This was the easy part. Remember that. I stepped down the ramp into Umbra Nox, and the shadows of the port closed over me. The air at Platform 3 felt wrong the second I stepped off the ramp. Most ports smell the same. Fuel, hot metal, too many bodies. ASP-3 had that, plus something underneath, a cold mix of rust and damp stone, like a cave that had swallowed a war factory. Low ceiling, armored plates studded with cold white lights. Vapor drifted in pale curtains. Every sound echoed. I palmed the hatch closed behind me and felt, just for a second, like I was turning my back on the only friend I had on the planet. "Don't let anyone steal you," I murmured. "Security protocols engaged," the runner replied in my ear. "Please refrain from being murdered." Working on it. Customs sat across the concourse, armored booths, Natari security, enough scanners to strip you to your thoughts. I joined the queue, trying to look like my biggest problem was a delayed delivery. When my turn came, the Natari officer's eyes glowed faint silver behind a clear mask. Name: Hadris Vaughn, short-haul tech courier. Blue light swept my body, lingering on the holster at my hip. The administrative override fee blinked amber on their console. Purpose of visit: transit and delivery. Black box repair, then outbound. Duration of stay: less than a cycle. Trust me, I'm not here for the scenery. Something like amusement flickered behind their eyes. Port access granted. Stay within cleared zones. Veil-shrouded perimeter is restricted. They handed back a physical tag. I clipped it to my jacket and moved on. Nisara's instructions were precise. Elevator bank C, down 3 levels. Freight tram, loop 6. Maintenance junction, 4V. Follow the corridor until the lights go from white to bioluminescent green. Knock twice on the door with the cracked sensor strip. I followed them. Elevator C dropped smooth and fast. At level -3, dimmer corridor, cooler air, stronger ozone. The freight tram was half empty. Through the mesh siding, I caught flashes of Umbra Nox's underskin, service tunnels veined with glowing void moss, substations where bioluminescent growth wrapped armored conduits. Every so often, open chasms where walls fell into black. Maintenance junction. 4V looked like a place no one cared about. Narrow platform, flickering lights, dirty walls. I stepped past the restricted access sign. The corridor narrowed. Patches of shade-light vines clung to corners, casting soft green glow. The door was half buried in wall, edges choked by vines pulsing with absorbed energy. Cracked sensor panel beside it. I knocked twice. The vine shifted, glow deepening to indigo. The sensor panel flickered, scanning me. Biosignature unknown, a filtered voice said. Debt signature known. Corvin Fox. My jaw tightened. So much for the polite fiction of anonymity? Nysara's hooks went deeper than I liked to admit. I liked it better when we pretended we were strangers, Nysara. Something chuckled low, amphibious, layered with static. The vines peeled away and the door retracted with a soft hiss. Then you shouldn't have used my money to get here. Come in, Fox. Nysara's lair felt like walking into a living machine. The ceiling was low, the space wider than it had any right to be given the corridor outside. Shadelight vines traced organic patterns across the walls, their glow braided with fiber optic strands that fed into consoles and neural interface stations. The floor was smooth composite in some places, exposed stone in others, patches of void moss softening the edges where tech met Earth. Banks of equipment lined one wall. Biotech rigs, data stacks grown rather than built, a long workbench cluttered with artifacts in various states of examination. On the far side, a cluster of heavy lockers sat half submerged in the ground, their surfaces etched with protective sigils that made my eyes want to slide off them. Cool, humid air carried faint brine and ozone. Low thrumming beat under my feet. Subtle, I said, if you're trying to stay off Imperium scans. Their scans see a maintenance anomaly. Nysara's voice came from the shadows. The vines just see food. She emerged like darkness deciding to move. Deep, violet enviro suit hugging a stocky amphibian frame, bio-circuit filaments glowing along her arms and torso. Helmet retracted into a collar ring. Dark, bioluminescent blue skin, wide horizontal eyes reflecting the room's light. You're late, she said. Traffic was murder. Syndicate patrols, subspace turbulence. Her suit filaments pulsed brighter. You say that as if it isn't your natural habitat. I prefer fewer people shooting at me. Then stop doing favors. She studied me. Turn. I turned. Her fingers tapped along my jacket seam. Suit glow shifted, then settled. No obvious bugs. You actually shook them. For now? You've seen the bounty boards, Nysara. They don't cross my name off, they underline it in red. Her skin glow flared red irritation. You don't bring heat into my world. You bring gifts to my door. Those are the rules. I brought the gifts, I said. You're the one who insisted on Umbra Nox. Because Umbra Nox is where the client is. Her filaments shifted to businesslike blue. Bring the cargo. I want to look at your gifts before she arrives. Instead of rolling 3 Vrykul crates through ASP-3, I loaded them into a single shielded transfer crate Nysara had sent ahead, built to spoof standard port scanners. By the time I had the big crate hovering on a low-grade sled through her door, my shoulders ached. Set them there, gently. Do I look like the kind of guy who drops irreplaceable artifacts? Yes, frequently. Fair. I powered down the sled. Nysara stepped closer, fingers tracing air above the crate. Her suit filaments flared, interfacing with the embedded locks. These came from the scrap basin directly? Rustborn Covenant foreman, personally. Straight out of a collapsed Nethrolith shaft. Provenance matters, she murmured. To the clans, it always matters. Her suit glow rippled down her arms, coalescing at her fingertips. With a soft click, the crate's front panel disengaged and folded down, revealing the inner cradle. The artifacts looked like nothing special. 3 pieces inside. 2 dense rods of dark, almost organic metal, etched with lines that refused to focus. The third, a small flattened sphere set into interlocking plates, like a mechanical flower halfway through blooming. The air around them felt heavier. Nysara's skin glow dimmed to focused blue. Yes, these will do. You sure? Because I'd hate to find out I dragged 3 tons of decorative scrap. Her suit filaments pulsed in a pattern that I'd learned meant amusement, even if it looked like static to anyone else. If they were nothing, the Syndicate wouldn't have chased you. The Syndicate watches that world with hungry eyes. They watched me. Subspace got the ones who followed. For now, she echoed, and the glow at her throat shifted toward violet again. Help me reseal them. She'll want to see them untouched. She? Nysara tapped her wrist terminal. Our buyer. Clan Thalvirith operative. She is on her way. I tried not to tense. Eidolon users made most sane people nervous. Clan operatives made smugglers very nervous. Thal Virith had a reputation for weaponizing everything they could bind to a circuit. You didn't mention the clan name in the job offer. You didn't ask. Her glow edged red. And I did not pay for itemized paranoia. She wasn't wrong. Vrykul Prime, dangerous but familiar. Umbra Nox, dangerous but structured. Client unknown, fence reliable. Clan Thal Virith turned that curve into something sharper. You're sure they're not looking to pick up the artifacts and my head in the same visit? If they were, they wouldn't be paying my commission. That's not a no. It is the only assurance you will get. Her suit's filaments cooled back toward blue. Relax, Fox. Thal Virith wants the relics. You are just incidental. Nothing like being incidental to keep a man humble. I paced while Nasara worked at her bench, suit glow shifting through slow patterns as she brought up holoscreens. The artifact crate sat sealed in the center of the room, its presence like a weight. The lair's acoustics made every footstep sound wrong, echo coming from ahead instead of behind. Outside, faint sounds drifted in, crystalline chiming, whisper of something moving through undergrowth. You're making the void moss nervous, Nasara said without looking up. I didn't know it had feelings. It reacts to agitation. You are loud. I'm standing here quietly. In your head, you're screaming. She wasn't entirely wrong. I leaned against bare wall. So why does Thal Virith need artifacts from a rust ball like Vrykul Prime when they've got their own forges? She tapped her console. Clan's value origin. Nethrolith relic from Vrykul Prime carries different harmonic resonance than one from the Abyssal Spire. Different failure thresholds, different interference patterns. They study the differences, weaponize them. Sounds healthy. Obsession rarely is. Violet pulse at her throat. Also, the Syndicate has quietly locked most of the basin's deeper shafts. Anything that escaped becomes more valuable. So I'm moving contraband. The Syndicate doesn't know they lost yet. Or, they know and are pretending they don't. For now, I muttered again. Nasara's glow shifted red for heartbeat irritation, but not at me. You are not the only one they watch. The clans move in their blind spots, but even blind spots shift. Comforting. You asked. She glanced at the entryway, filaments along her helmet ring brightening. She is close. I hadn't heard a thing. The room changed first. Pressure shifted subtle, like standing too close to something heavy and silent. The void moss along the walls dimmed half a shade. Then she was there. I didn't see her arrive. 1 second, the entryway was empty. The next, it held a woman who seemed to resolve out of the darkness itself. Human, tall, combat suit with clean, predatory lines. Dark material traced with faint red circuitry like stylized veins. Hair pulled back tight. Cold gray eyes that swept the room in one efficient pass. The air around her had weight, not visible, just awareness along the skin. Lock, Nasara said. Her suit glow shifted to professional blue, right on time. Of course, the pattern favors preparation. Clan Thal Virith. The way she said pattern sounded like capital letters and sharp edges. Her gaze went to the crate. The rest of the room ceased to exist. She crossed the room in efficient strides, no wasted motion. The crate was the only thing that mattered. She scanned the crate. Resealed, but intact. External field residue consistent with deep shaft nethrolith digs. Her eyes turned to Nasara's glyphs. Good. Did you think I wouldn't verify the cargo? Nasara asked dryly. She gave Nasara an almost amused look. Some fences can't help themselves. Her fingers hovered over the seals, not touching. Air shimmered faintly around her hands, tiny distortion that made edges fuzz. Eidolon. Subtle, unmistakable. May I? Payment terms first, Nasara said smoothly. The woman's gaze slid past Nasara and landed on me like a weight. Head tilted slightly. You're the courier? Smuggler. Courier implies, I follow rules. A flicker passed through her eyes. Corvin Fox, former Syndicate asset. The words hit harder than they should have. Former asset. Like she pulled my file and memorized the ugly parts. I fought not to stiffen. Exaggerated rumors. I've never belonged to anyone. Then they wasted a lot of ink on the wanted notices. Nasara's suit rippled violet, enjoying this. You've been studying my portfolio. Should I be flattered or worried? Neither. You are a vector, a useful one if you survive. Comforting. And you're Eryxa Locke, Thalvirith retrieval specialist. The authentication process was fast, precise, and made my skin crawl. Eryxa knelt by the crate, fingers hovering a millimeter above the locking glyphs. The air around her hands thickened, a faint, reddish shimmer outlining her gloves. The room's noise dropped another notch, like everything had pulled back to give her space. I'll confirm through 3 channels, she said, mostly to Nisara. Pattern resonance, structural integrity, signature alignment. I trust my Rustborn contact, I said. They haven't killed me yet. That's not the same as vouching, she said without looking up. Welcome to my life. She ignored that. The first check was purely idolic. She closed her eyes, expression smoothing out, and the shimmer around her fingers deepened. The air tasted metallic. Tiny motes of dust hung motionless in a band around the crate, caught in some static field. For a moment, I felt a pressure behind my eyes, like a headache on the verge of forming. Then it eased. Resonance baseline matches Thalvirith archives, she said. Nethrolith origin, pattern variance within acceptable margins. Her hand drifted to the device holstered at her belt, a compact scanner shaped more like a ritual object than an instrument. She slotted it against a recessed port on the crate's side. Lines of crimson data scrolled across its surface. Structural analysis, she murmured. No recent tampering. External field residue matches deep industrial displacement, not lab simulation. She withdrew the scanner, tapped a control panel on her wrist. A hollow bloomed in the air, 3 simple shapes matching the rods and sphere inside, overlaid with energy plots. Signature alignment, good. These are what was promised. I do enjoy not getting shot over fraud accusations, I said. You mistake verification for suspicion. Thalvirith does not accuse without evidence. Must be nice. Some of us have to live with the Syndicate. Her eyes flicked up, brief as a blade. You lived with them long enough to know better. Nisara's suit shifted red. Payment, she said, tone flattening. As agreed. Eryxa stood. The flickering holo cast long red lines across her combat suit. You delivered, she said. On time, despite Syndicate interference. I shrugged, trying not to show the ache in my shoulders. That's one way to describe nearly dying in subspace. Eryxa didn't blink. The agreed rate stands. Of course it does, I said. Wouldn't dream of asking a clan operative to adjust numbers. Nisara's suit flared violet. She didn't speak, but her amusement rippled through the bioluminescent lines pulsing up her arms. Eryxa remained motionless. Next time, I added, maybe flag the job if it comes with a named hunter on my 6. You accepted the risk, she said flatly. I accepted the delivery, I replied. Survived the rest. Eryxa's eyes locked with mine. Cold, measuring. You chose to complete the task, she said. I'll remember that. We held the moment. Then she turned away without ceremony and tapped her wrist console. A secure channel blinked open on Nisara's interface. Funds are staged, Eryxa said. Nisara turned toward me, her fingers hovering over the console. Routing preferences, Fox? Split it, I said. 60 to my Rogue's Haven account, 20 toward debt reduction, 20 into maintenance reserves. The Nekrith gave a soft, approving hum. Her tone coiled with something sly. Diversification. I approve. Call it survival instinct. Her fingers flicked over her interface, adjusting the amounts. Then she gave a nod. Ready. Just need the thumbprint. Eryxa stepped to the crate without hesitation. She laid her gloved hand flat across the surface. The air thickened. The glyphs lit once crimson flickers rippling through carved lines, then stilled. Handover confirmed, she said. Release payment. Nisara's hands danced across the controls. Her glow shifted to a rich azure. Somewhere far from Umbra Nox, numbers shifted. My debt crawled a little closer to 0. Done, Nisara said. Fox, you should see. She never finished. The air changed. The soft hum of machinery, the whisper of vents, the crackle of vines all cut out in the same instant, leaving a hard, unnatural silence. I froze. My gut went tight. That's not good, I said under my breath. Nisara's suit pulsed red. No, she replied. It is not. Arixa turned toward the doorway, eyes narrowing, her voice dropped half an octave. Movement. Outside. Access tunnel. I stepped away from the crate. How many? I asked. She didn't look at me, just stared toward the archway. Enough, Arixa said. Enough to make your syndicate problems my concern. Then came the sound. A heavy thunk from beyond the door, muffled, deliberate, something being locked into place. And just like that, the handoff was over. The first charge went off. Dull, heavy thump from beyond the entryway. Dust sifted down. The shade-light vines near the archway flared a startled green. Nisara's suit glow snapped to hard red. That came from the forest side access. Too close. I realized what had been bothering me. The faint background noise bleeding through stone and roots was gone. Distant chittering, hollow crystalline chime of Umbra Nox's wind. Silent. Forest just went quiet, I said. Everything smart is hiding, Nisara replied. We should be doing the same. A second charge hit nearer, rattling consoles. The archway flexed, cracks skittering through stone where vines had fused. I drew my pistol. The compact plasma piece felt suddenly inadequate. Subspace static spiking, Nisara added. Localized. They're using a dampener net. Hunters, Arixa said. Her tone hadn't changed. She stood by the crate, one hand resting on top, eyes half-lidded. How many? 2 teams at least, one directly ahead, one flanking through the maintenance shaft Nisara pretends isn't there. Nisara's suit glow flickered, offended. It's sealed. It was, Arixa said. A third hit slammed the door. The shade-light vines screamed high, rising wail as their fibers charred. The frame bowed inward. Glass me, I breathed. They followed me. They followed the money, Nisara said tightly. And the relics. The fourth charge was a breach. The door blew inward in smoke, shredded metal, and burning vine. The shockwave kicked my feet out. I hit the floor hard, ribs lighting up white. My pistol skittered away. I rolled, trying to get behind anything solid. They were already coming through the door. Armored figures stepped through smoke. 4 of them, visors lit, syndicate red, rifles up. The layer's bioluminescent glow strobed off their plating. Corvin Fox, a voice drawled over speakers. There you are. They'd hijacked Nisara's audio. Of course. Syndicate property, on a syndicate docket, in breach of syndicate terms. Smooth, amused, horribly familiar. You do get around, Wraith. You have got to be kidding me. Biometric match. Nice to hear your voice, Fox. Slab came through behind the first wave. He filled the doorway. Augmented, heavy, taller by a head and a half, plasma cannon mounted to spinal rig that pivoted like artillery. The cannon's capacitors whined, barrel tracking across the room. Careful, Wraith murmured. We want him alive. Mostly. I scrambled behind equipment cases. Shots stitched the floor where I'd been, gouging molten furrows. Heat seared my cheek. Nisara had already moved, sliding into a narrow recess, suit glow spiking frantic red. She wasn't built for combat. Arixa didn't move. She stood by the crate like she'd been bolted there, eyes tracking hunters with flat interest. Plasma hammered my cover. Dust and fragments rained down. My pistol lay under the nearest console, just out of reach. Of course. The first hunter advanced with textbook precision. The other 3 fanned out, overlapping lines of fire. Fox, Wraith said conversationally, you've cost us 3 ships, 2 good pilots, and considerable patience. The Council's very interested in how you plan to pay that back. You take credit sticks, or only organs now. The nearest hunter snapped a shot that tore through vines a handspan from my face. Your mouth keeps writing checks. One day you're going to run out of blood to cash them. The cannon whined higher. Slab was tracking for a bigger shot. I kicked off the wall, sliding on my shoulder. Heat lanced past as the cannon roared, a beam of white-blue carving through my cover. The cases detonated into molten shrapnel. The blast threw me hard into another console. My left arm went numb. Slab, Wraith sighed. We talked about impulse control. Had suppression field up. He moved. I fumbled for my pistol. Fingers closed around it. Familiar weight. Get small. Get moving. Make them work for it. I crawled behind another rack, popping up to send shots back. not trying to punch through armor, aiming for joints, exposed cables, sensory clusters. One hunter jerked as a bolt hit his helmet. He staggered. I put another shot into his knee rig, his leg locked. He went down hard. The pistol's heat warning flashed after the 6th shot. Overheat in 3 rounds. Story of my life. Fox, Wraith called. You know the math here. 3 of you, 6 of us, plus Slab, plus Whisper. I couldn't see Whisper. That was the point. 50,000 credits if you walk out. 30 if we have to scrape you off the walls. I fired blind over the console. If the Syndicate wanted civilized, they shouldn't have sent a guy named after a ghost. I like ghosts. They're quiet, loyal. His voice shifted. Last chance, Fox. Drop the pistol. Step out. Knees, hands behind your head. Across the room, Arixa finally spoke. This is your negotiation, not mine. Do try to make it interesting. I could see her through gaps between consoles. She still hadn't moved from the crate. Little help? I snapped. She tilted her head slightly. You have not yet offered me anything I want. Plasma slammed the console above my head, splattering molten composite onto my shoulders. It burned through my jacket. I hissed and rolled. What you want is for those relics to leave this room. Hard to do if the Syndicate owns the place. The Syndicate does not own Umbra Nox. Wraith laughed over calm. The clan operative thinks jurisdiction matters. That's adorable. Slab's cannon whined again, pitch climbing. He was lining up another cut. Deny me cover. Turn the place into open ground. My pistol's heat warning stayed solid red. One more shot and it would lock into cooldown. Pinned, outgunned, with a clan operative watching me like a test pattern, I made a decision. 10% off, I shouted. The room went very still. What? Wraith said. I peeked around the console. Arixa was looking straight at me now. 10% off the total. Hazard compensation. You get your relics for 90, I get to live. You are negotiating a discount under fire, Nisara said quietly. Her suit flickered between horrified red and fascinated violet. Of course you are. Arixa's mouth twitched faintly. No. Another volley chewed the wall. One clipped my boot, heat lancing up my ankle. Frack, I hissed, scrambling deeper. Slab's cannon swung. 15, I yelled. Fox, Wraith said, half exasperated, half admiring. Who exactly do you think you're haggling with? Anyone who wants these relics more than they want me dead. Arixa regarded the hunters like they were mildly interesting weather. Slab's cannon hit charge peak. The air hummed. Barrel locked onto my corner. Last chance, Wraith called. Alive or in pieces, Fox? Arixa removed her hand from the crate. Carefully, gently. Then she straightened, rolling her shoulders. The air around her hands rippled. It wasn't light or sound, just visible wrongness, like someone had bent the room. 15%, she said. He stated it. Yes, I said. Glass me, yes. Her mouth moved barely. Then whatever restraint she'd held snapped. I'd seen Eidolon work before, never up close in a room I was trying not to die in. The distortion around Arixa's hands flared outward, rolling up her arms in violet-white surge. Circuit traces on her suit lit. The air grew heavy. Contact, a hunter barked. Clan operative. Slab fired. The shot screamed across the room, a fist-thick lance of plasma that should have carved Arixa and the crate into slag. It hit something a meter in front of her and stopped. Not stopped, spread, flattening against an invisible surface in a spray of light. The impact lit the barrier in blinding flare, outlining a curved plane wrapping around her and the crate. Heat washed across the room. Inside the shell, Arixa stood unmoved, arms out, fingers splayed. Frack me, Wraith said softly. She's pattern-touched. The barrier absorbed the shot, then bled energy in crackling arcs. Shadelight vines caught fire. Smoke thickened. Arixa dropped her left hand. The barrier shifted. Stored energy from Slab's shot rolled down, funneled into a tight cone. It hung there, roiling knot of white-blue heat. Then she pushed. The cone snapped forward, a compressed wave riding the cannon's own plasma. It hit the floor between the front 2 hunters like a hammer. Both men went flying. One hit the wall hard enough to crack his visor. The other smashed into a console that exploded in sparks. chaos. "Nets!" Wraith shouted. "Scatter!" I broke cover, moving low. My pistol cooled just enough for another shot. I put it into the downed hunter with the cracked visor. Bolt punched through the fracture. His body jerked, slumped. The remaining frontliner swung his rifle toward me. Before he could fire, the weapon tore itself from his hands. It jumped upward as if yanked, smashing into the ceiling hard enough to embed. The hunter's arms jerked with it. He screamed. Arixa flicked 2 fingers. The rifle ripped free and flew across the room, slamming into the far wall. She wasn't looking at him. Her attention had shifted, eyes locked on empty air near my left flank. The distortion around her hands pulsed, sensing something I couldn't see. "Behind you," she said. I dove sideways. A blade swept through where my kidneys had been. Cloaking failed. Whisper bloomed into view. Light bent around him as his optical mesh tried to reassert. Erix's right hand clenched. Whisper's cloak collapsed. Not visually, physically. Refractor nodes buckled inward, crumpling like they were being crushed. The circuitry sparked and died. He screamed as his harness locked, pinning his arms. "Target compromised," he choked. "Field." Erix's hand snapped sideways. Whisper followed, slammed into the wall hard enough to leave a dent. His head hit with a sickening crack. He slid down, leaving a dark smear. He didn't get up. Slab bellowed, guttural, wordless sound. The cannon pivoted toward Erixa again. "Full charge. I'll burn the hole." "Stand down," Wraith snapped. "You'll kill the asset." "Don't care." Nisara chose that moment to panic productively. Her suit glow went full scarlet. She slammed a palm onto a console panel. Half the lair's biotech racks shuddered. Shadelight vines along one wall spasmed, glow spiking. Circuits braided through them surged, then blew in snapping arcs. The nearest hunter convulsed as raw energy leapt from vine to armor. His whole body locked, twitched once, went limp. "Apologies," Nisara said thinly. "Reflex." "Never apologize for electrocuting people who want to kill me," I said. Wraith was still just a voice in the corridor. He hadn't stepped into line of sight. Smart. He didn't have to. He had slab. The cannon screamed as it climbed into overcharge. The smell shifted to sharp ozone and burnt plastic. Erixa's shoulders tightened. Sweat beaded along her hairline. The barrier flickered, thinning. "Your cannon is unstable," she called. "Good," Slab snarled. He fired. The shot hammered the barrier with enough force to drive Erixa back a step. The floor cracked. The violet-white field flared, then buckled. I felt the heat from across the room. For a second, I thought the barrier would fail. Erixa's teeth were bared, eyes narrowed. Her hands shook holding the field. Then she dropped it. Not entirely. She let the front face collapse just as the shot hit critical, shifting the rest into a tight, angled wedge. The plasma slammed into that wedge and slid. It screamed across the barrier surface and deflected downward, chewing a molten trench through the floor just in front of Slab. The heavy staggered his ground under his boots liquefied. His next step landed wrong. His leg drove knee-deep into glowing slag. He howled. The cannon jerked sideways. Erixa moved. One moment beside the crate. The next, a blur of dark suit and violet light crossing the room in a straight, merciless line. One of the remaining hunters tried to get in her way. Her hand snapped out, fingers brushing his chest plate. Kinetic force rolled off her touch. His armor buckled inward with a crunch. His feet left the floor. He flew backward into consoles and didn't move. She hit Slab just as he wrenched his leg free. Her left hand stayed out, barrier still hugging the crate. Her right hand moved to her hip, drawing something. It wasn't a blade, not yet. She palmed what looked like a bare metal grip, segments folded tight. Her thumb found a release. The blade unfolded. Segments snapped out in smooth ripple, locking one after another into a full-length sword. Each piece was etched in tight Thalvirith glyphs that woke up as they extended, glowing hard violet white along seams. The whole thing had a lazy, predatory flex. She slid under his desperate swing with fluidity that looked half human, half something else. Her segmented blade flashed once across the cannon's support cabling. The couplings parted. The cannon dropped, mount sheared clean. It hit the floor, still half-charged, and spat plasma into the ceiling before dying with a rising whine. Slab roared and grabbed for her, augmented fingers closing like hydraulic presses. Vrikyul stepped inside his reach. The blade reconfigured mid-swing sections, shivering apart to catch gaps in his armor, then snapping straight as she drove it up under his chin through the plating. Glyphs along the metal flared bright. The big man staggered, eyes wide, disbelieving, his hands spasmed, closing on empty air. Then his spinal hardware decided the conversation was over. His body went slack. He fell with a crash that shook dust from the ceiling. She wrenched the blade free. Segments flexed, already hunting for the next line of entry. "Slab down," I said. "That's new." "Reminder," Nisara muttered. "Do not antagonize clan operatives." Adding it to the list. That left Wraith and whoever he still had standing. The room was a mess. Smoke, sparks, flickering vines. My lungs felt raw. My left shoulder throbbed. "Fox," Wraith called, his tone still smooth, but an edge now. "You're denting my investment. You should have paid for express service. You've made your point, but this isn't over." He still hadn't stepped into the room. That bothered me. I edged around a half-melted console, pistol up. The pistol buzzed, warning heat building, cells low. I thumbed the power setting down to squeeze a few more shots. "Wraith," Vrikyul said, her voice cut through the haze. "Your options are dwindling." She flicked her wrist. The segments collapsed back into the hilt with a soft snick, glyph light folding in. "You'd be surprised," he replied. "You've killed 2, maybe 3, broken my heavy, fried whispers rig. But we're not alone on this world. And we're not the ones standing in a burning room full of volatile tech." She glanced at the sparking consoles, smoldering vines. He had a point. "Fall back," he ordered. "We're done here." I saw him then, flash of movement at the archway's edge, lean figure in lighter armor, visor dark, long-barreled carbine. One hand rested casually on the arch. I raised my pistol. He was already retreating. "Abort. Clan operative on site. Fox is tagged. We'll pick him up when he runs." Tagged. The word landed in the back of my head like a cold stone. "I don't feel tagged," I muttered. Vrikyul heard. Her eyes narrowed. "Coward," she said. "Professional. Enjoy your discount, Fox. You're worth every credit." Then he was gone, boots ringing once before the sound was swallowed by Umbra Nox's heavy air. A last wild burst of cover fire chewed the floor near my boots as they pulled back. I stayed down. For a heartbeat, I thought that was it. Then, the last hunter, the one I'd thought was down, made a break for it. He staggered up from behind a collapsed console, grabbing his side where armor hung scorched. He saw the doorway and bolted. Vrikyul raised a hand. A barrier snapped across the archway with a sound like cracking ice. The hunter hit it at full sprint. He bounced off like he'd run into a wall. His rifle went spinning. He hit the floor hard, sliding back, gasping. He looked up, dazed. I walked over, slow, pistol aimed. Up close, I could see the Syndicate branding unit insignia, bounty markers, the jagged coin symbol. He raised a hand. "Wait, we can. 30,000 alive, huh? Should have taken that offer." I put a bolt through his visor. The pistol screamed final protest, heat spiking. Then the indicator went dark, barrel smoking. Silence rushed in, broken only by crackle of fires chewing vine network. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The room looked like a war crime. Half the console slagged. Shadelight vines hung in blackened ropes, still smoking. Void moss panels smoldered, sending up thin tendrils of acrid smoke. Nisara emerged slowly, suit glow, cycling jittery red-orange. "My lair," she said faintly. "My beautiful, discreet, carefully balanced lair." "Still more discreet than a Syndicate black site," I rasped. "And hey, some of the equipment survived." A nearby console chose that moment to spit sparks and die. Most of the equipment survived. She shot me a look. Her suit's patterns had calmed to stable red now, anger cooling into pragmatic. "Your sense of humor is inversely proportional to the damage you cause." "That's my survival mechanism." Across the wreckage, Vrikyul stood in the center like the eye of a storm. The glow along her suit had faded to faint tracery. Distortions gone, but the memory still pressed behind my eyes. Her shoulders rose and fell in slow, controlled breaths. Sweat darkened the hair at her temples. For the first time, she looked tired. Not weak, never that, but like the edge had taken something out of her. Eidolon always collected. She let the collapsed blade rest against her hip. Her gaze tracked over the bodies, the damage, lingering arcs of unstable energy. Then she looked at me. Payment adjustment. Here it comes, I muttered. 15% discount for field exigencies. She paused. 5% surcharge for direct combat support. That's not how math works. 20% total. I stared. That wasn't the deal. She took a step toward me. Not threatening. Just close enough that I could see faint hairline scars at the edges of her augments, little imperfections that said her enhancements came hard-earned. You saw what I can do. You saw what your syndicate friends can do. I intervened. I preserved the artifacts. I preserved your fence. I preserved you. Tiny shrug. 20% is generous. Behind her, Nisara made a soft huffing sound. I am inclined to agree. You owe me structural repairs. I ran the numbers. That extra 5% stung. I'd be walking away with 80 instead of 85. Between Nisara's cut, the runner's repairs, and the debt I owed, that 5% swing was the difference between tight and hungry. I held Arixa's gaze. She didn't flinch. Her eyes were very pale, very steady, very sure she could kill me before I finished a word if I said the wrong thing. 20%, I said finally, but that extra 5, consider it a deposit on our first date. Nisara choked. Wet, startled sound, half laugh, half appalled wheeze. Her suit glow flashed violet in sharp pulses. Arixa's expression didn't change for a heartbeat. Then something in it cracked, just a tiny easing at the corners of her mouth, the barest hitch in her jaw. On anyone else, it would barely register. On her, it felt seismic. You're either brave, she said slowly, or signal fried. Why not both? Because one gets you killed faster. Nisara's glow settled into relaxed purple. I admit, I am curious which it is. Place your bets. Arixa shook her head once, dismissing the whole line. She turned toward Nisara's main console and keyed a sequence on her wrist. Adjusting payment, clan account, pulling a clawback. Fox, check your balances. I pulled up the implant display. Numbers shifted, pale green against smoke. The total ticked down 20%. My robe's haven balance dropped to match. 20% off, I said. As advertised. Be grateful, Nisara said. Most clients would have taken product and let the syndicate clean up. I am grateful. I'm just also aware of being tagged, Arixa said. The cold stone in my head shifted. You heard him. Fox is tagged. You think he was bluffing? Unlikely. Wraith's reputation suggests he values information over dramatics. Wonderful. So I'm a beacon now. Not yet. They'll activate it when it will hurt you most. That's extremely comforting. She regarded me, then looked to Nisara. Confirmed delivery. Nisara's suit glow slid to business-like blue. Artifact transfer confirmed. Thalvirith ledger updated. My commission registered. Good. Arixa stepped back to the crate, laying her hand on it. The air around the container shimmered as she wrapped it in compacted field. The glyphs flared, then dimmed into a pattern that made my eyes hurt. Transport envelope. Subsurface exfiltration. So you're not taking the scenic route through ASP-3. Imperium oversight and syndicate hunters in the same port. I prefer fewer variables. Can't fault that. She paused at the damaged archway, looking back. Smoke curled around her, limned in violet. For a second, she looked less like a person and more like a rumor about why you didn't cross the clans. Fox, you will leave Umbra Nox within the next cycle. I snorted. Trust me, that was already the plan. Do not underestimate Wraith, or his replacement. You're not staying to help with round 2? The deal is complete. You have been compensated. She almost sounded like she regretted it. Almost. Try not to get killed. I'll put it on my to-do list. Just below, find a new job with less artillery. That almost smile ghosted across her face again. Then she stepped through the archway into the corridor. For a moment, I could track her by faint glow of her suit, moving down the tunnel like violet lightning. Then the darkness of Umbra Nox closed behind her, and she was gone. Nisara let out a long, slow breath, suit glowed dimming to weary blue. That could have gone worse. You're welcome. You are paying for repairs. Add it to my tab. It is already on your tab. Your tab needs its own ledger. I gingerly flexed my left arm. Pain shot down from my shoulder. Nothing felt broken, but I'd be moving like rusted machinery for a while. You all right? My lair is wounded. I am irritated. That is all right for now. Then we're both fine. She stepped over a dead hunter and prodded a smoking console. They will come back. Maybe not Wraith, but someone. Syndicate does not like losing their toys. I got that impression. You should leave. Soon. While ASP-3's security is still recalibrating and the Imperium hasn't decided whether to be offended. That was the plan. Get paid. Get gone. She looked up at me, suit glow shifting to playful violet despite everything. Interesting negotiation technique. I work with what I have. 15% to start the fight. 5 more to finish it. You know Arixa will log that. Good. Maybe she'll remember I'm a good investment. You really are signal fried. Profitable chaos. Isn't that what you called me? Her patterns pulsed in amusement. Because you're profitable. Chaos, I can get anywhere. She moved to her console, fingers dancing. A small transfer pinged. Your commission. Adjusted for my structural suffering. I checked it. Not much, but something. You know where to find me, Fox. If you survive the next few cycles. Same. If the Imperium doesn't decide your lair is too interesting. She shrugged, suit hissing softly. If they do, I move. Umbra Nox is full of shadows. I will find another. Of course she would. I looked around the wrecked room one last time. Scorched vines, dead men, faint, lingering trace of Eidolon in the air. Try not to sell the story to the highest bidder. Oh no, she replied, her suit glow brightened, amused. This one I keep for myself. By the time I hit the main access tunnel from Nisara's lair, my shoulder felt like broken glass and spite. Every step jarred it. Every breath reminded my ribs they'd had a bad day. The corridor was quiet. Too quiet. Background noise from the way down, machinery hum, ventilation whisper, maintenance drone skitter was gone. Like the port was holding its breath. I kept my pistol in hand even though it was locked in cooldown. Dead weight was better than nothing. The access tunnel climbed in a long, gentle spiral. Shadelight vines dotted the walls, their glow muted, wary. They pulsed in slow, irregular patterns, like a heartbeat deciding if it should panic. Nothing moved. I reached the junction. One path toward freight trams, the other toward a maintenance ladder up to ASP-3's lower docking tiers. I chose the latter. Fewer cameras, fewer questions. The rungs were cold, slick with condensation. I climbed slowly, favoring my good arm, boots finding purchase on metal worn smooth by years of smugglers who didn't want their names on logs. At the top, a hatch. Coded lock. I keyed in the override Nisara had given me 3 jobs back. The lock blinked green. The hatch popped with a soft hiss. I climbed into the lower docking tier. The bay was dimmer than I remembered, emergency lighting casting everything in harsh red-orange. A handful of ships sat on their pads, hulls cold, ramps sealed. No crew, no dock workers, no security patrols. ASP-3 was in lockdown. I moved toward my pad, keeping to shadows. The rust runner sat where I'd left her. Struts locked, hull scarred but intact. No alerts pinging from my wrist console. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Runner, I muttered into my comm. You still with me? Hull integrity nominal. Security protocols report 0 breaches. You sound injured. Observant. Prep for immediate departure. Full pre-flight. Skip the diagnostics. Skipping diagnostics is inadvisable. So is staying here. Do it. Acknowledged. I hit the ramp release and climbed aboard, sealing the hatch. Familiar smell of recycled air and old metal wrapped around me. Home. Or close enough. I dropped into the pilot's couch with a grunt that turned into a hiss as my ribs protested. My left arm hung limp. Runner, how's our fuel? Sufficient for departure and hyperspace jump. Reserves at 62%. Good enough. Spin up the engines. The deck thrummed as engines came online. Low, rising growl I felt in my bones. Outside, lights shifted. Red strobes flared along the docking tower. Automated turrets swiveled, targeting solutions locking onto my hull. Wraith had pulled strings that reached all the way to Port Authority. Runner. How fast can we move? From standby to liftoff, 8 seconds. Make it 6. Physical limitations suggest, make it 6. The engines screamed. Struts released with a sharp metallic clang. The runner lurched upward, inertial dampers barely keeping pace. Alarms shrieked. The first turret opened fire. Plasma bolts stitched across the deck where we'd been parked. I yanked the yoke hard left, rolling into a barrel turn that sent loose objects flying. My ribs screamed, my vision grayed. Shields up. Shields holding at 40%. Another volley hammered into us. The hull rang like a bell. Shield levels dropped to 28%. I punched the throttle, aiming for the bay's launch corridor, narrow exit tunnel leading up toward Umbra Nox's surface. The corridor was sealed. A blast door sat across it, solid composite and shield plating, locked tight. Runner, can we punch through that? Negative. Insufficient kinetic force. Shields will fail first. Then open it. It is sealed by Port Authority override. I do not have access. I gritted my teeth. How much explosive force would it take? To breach the door or to kill us? Preferably just the door, the runner calculated. If we overload the rift generator and dump the surge into the door, the resulting subspace rupture would destabilize the door's structural integrity. And us? Also yes. Better plan? Unknown. More turrets locked on. Shots converged from 3 angles, hammering our shields. 20%. 15. I made a decision. Overload the generator. Vent it forward on my mark. This will critically damage the generator. Yeah, I know. Do it. The rift generator's status bar spiked into red. Warnings flashed across every screen. The deck vibrated with a deep, unstable hum that made my teeth ache. I lined us up with the blast door, throttle wide open, closing fast. 500 meters. 400. 300. Mark. The generator vented. A wave of raw subspace energy exploded forward, invisible but devastating. It hit the blast door like a hammer made of broken physics. The door buckled. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Alarms went haywire as the subspace rupture tore into local reality. Then the door blew. Fragments spun away into the tunnel. We punched through the gap, shields flaring as debris hammered us from all sides. The corridor swallowed us, walls flashing past in a blur of red light and metal. Ahead, I saw stars. We burst out of ASP-3 like a cork from a bottle, atmosphere roaring past, the runner's engines screaming defiance. Behind us, turrets tracked. A final volley chased us into Umbra Nox's thin, cold sky, but we were already gone. Shields at 8%. Hull integrity nominal. Rift generator critically damaged. Emergency functions only. Add it to the list, I panted. I pulled us into a steep climb, aiming for the orbital lane. Below, Umbra Nox's dark surface fell away, bioluminescent scars fading into blackness. Above, the grave belt waited, broken halo of rocks and death. Runner, plot jump to anywhere that isn't here. Clarification, anywhere? Anywhere the Syndicate isn't. Surprise me. Numbers scrolled. A course appeared. Hyperspace corridor available. Designation, HX, Rim 9. Destination, Outer Rim Trading Hub, Rogues Haven. Rogues Haven, not perfect, but far. Do it. The runner's sublight engines redlined. We clawed for altitude, threading through the grave belt's outer edge, rocks tumbling past close enough to see surface details. Then space tore open ahead of us. Not a clean rift this time. The runner was pulling this jump on residual charge and desperation, using last dregs of subspace bleed to claw open a corridor. It looked like a wound. We fell into it. Hyperspace caught us, dragged us forward, and I let the velocity pin me to the couch as Umbra Nox vanished behind. For a moment, the universe was just speed and light and the fading echo of plasma fire. Then the corridor stabilized, and I could breathe again. Jump successful. Estimated time to Rogue's Haven, 16 hours. Good. I leaned back, eyes closed, listening to the engine settle and the tick of cooling metal. Tagged. Wraith's voice echoed in my head, smooth and amused. I reached for the med kit under my seat, popped it open one-handed, and pulled out a stim injector. Pressed it to my neck. Felt the burn as it dumped painkillers and synthetic adrenaline into my bloodstream. The edge came off. Not much. Enough. Runner. Scan for foreign signals. Anything that doesn't belong. Initiating full spectrum scan. I waited. Minutes stretched. Scan complete. No foreign signals detected. I let out a breath. Maybe Wraith was bluffing. Maybe the tag was on the hull, and we'd left it behind in the blast door debris. Maybe I had 16 hours before the universe caught up. Maybe. The alarm pinged. Just a single, sharp tone and a new icon flashing on the sensor board. Soft amber triangle that hadn't been there a second before. Unknown signal detected. Origin, internal. The words hit like cold water down my spine. The ghost warning from before, the one I dismissed as old Syndicate firmware, suddenly made sickening sense. My stomach dropped in a way that had nothing to do with hyperspace. Define unknown. Unregistered transmission handshake detected. Source, auxiliary systems. Bandwidth minimal. Signal piggybacking on standard status beacons. Destination, non-local. Routed along current vector. Encrypted. I stared at the display. A breadcrumb trail mapped itself out in tiny, blinking markers. Pings that had already gone ahead of us, leapfrogging down the current like sparks along a line. They hadn't just tagged me, they'd embedded it deep, in the runner's bones, riding systems I trusted. The ship had been theirs once, and some part of it still remembered. "Glass me," I whispered. They tagged me. The amber triangle shifted to red. Tracker signature locked. Syndicate encryption pattern. Attempting to jam. Lines of code flickered as the ship's countermeasures spun up, trying to drown the outgoing signal and noise. Some of the pings dimmed, but not enough. The handshake had already been made. Too late. They know. As if to confirm it, another alert bloomed on the scope. 2 new contacts had appeared aft, well outside normal traffic spacing. They burned bright in hyperspace terms. Drive fields keyed into the same current, vectors locked on mine. 2 vessels entering current on matching trajectory. Relative velocity, plus 12%. Estimated intercept in 6 hours, 2 minutes. I rubbed a hand over my face. 2 ships, could be worse. Could have been Wraith plus half a squadron. 2 was manageable. In theory, with a better ship. On a better day. Scan profiles? Partial only. Drive signatures masked. Emissions consistent with Syndicate design philosophies. Of course they are, I exhaled. Why make this easy? I leaned back, feeling the weight of acceleration pressing me down, the long, humming tunnel of hyperspace stretching ahead and behind. I couldn't stop, not easily. Dropping out of the current this deep meant forcing the rift generator to fight geometry of a river bigger than whole star systems. Possible, with time and room, and no one breathing down my neck. If I tried it now, hard and fast, I might tear the coils apart. Best case, I'd end up stranded in random patch of subspace with a crippled ship and 2 angry Syndicate hunters with a shorter distance between us. I did the math anyway. Energy reserves, generator tolerances, shield margins. Every route ended at the same place. Interception. Could be worse, I amended. They were faster on this current, but hyperspace wasn't just about raw speed. Field geometry mattered. Timing mattered. So did what you did when you hit the exit. I needed a plan. I pulled up the nav map, plotting where this current would spit us out. Dull, unremarkable system on the edge of the outer fringe. All dust and rock and a half-decommissioned relay station. I'd picked it because nobody cared about it. Runner, start logging micro-fluctuations in the current ahead and behind us. I want a full profile in 4 hours. Affirmative. Purpose? Looking for potholes, places where a drive field could stumble. Current is considered structurally stable. I'm not looking for collapse. I'm looking for rough patches. A pause. Understood. I brought up weapons next. The runner wasn't a warship. Her armament consisted of a pair of forward plasma cannons that were old when my grandparents were young, and a dorsal turret that only tracked properly if you coaxed it. Forward batteries at 78% charge. Turret rotation servo experiencing resistance. 19% variance. Pistol sidearm recharged and functional. Good. I might need to shoot something that's not my own foot. The little compact plasma pistol sat in its holster by the console. I checked the chamber, swamped in a fresh heatsink from the stash under the console, and snapped it closed. Familiar weight settled against my side. 2 ships behind, 1 beat-up smuggler ahead. A busted shoulder, a damaged ship, and a Syndicate tag humming softly somewhere in my systems like a distant headache. Rust Runner's taken worse odds, I told the canopy. The tunnel of light outside didn't argue. Probably, I added. I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. 6 hours until intercept. Enough time to bleed out. Enough time to think. Enough time to make a choice about whether I wanted to keep running in straight lines, or maybe, finally, throw a curve. I didn't know yet what that looked like. Maybe it looked like slamming hard on the rift generator just as we hit the exit node and letting the current spit them out ahead of me. Maybe it looked like dropping early into some ugly subspace knot where only idiots and Ampharodon navigators went on purpose. Maybe it looked like making another dangerous woman very, very rich. Whatever it was out there, waiting in the space between now and 6 hours from now. I tightened the harness across my chest, winced as it bit into my bruised ribs, and started laying out options on the holo, each tagged with a little flickering icon: risk, reward, probability of walking away with all my important parts still attached. Behind us, the 2 signatures burned steady and patient, closing the gap by centimeters per second. Ahead, the tunnel wound on, through shadows and failing systems and the thin thread of a smuggler's luck stretched against a criminal empire's reach. I set my jaw and kept planning. If the Syndicate wanted to chase me this far into the dark, the least I could do was make sure I was worth the trouble. The price I'd named, the price I'd paid, and now the price following me home through hyperspace, patient and inevitable as rust. Rust and shadows, I muttered. Every price circles back to rust and shadows. Rust and shadows. Story file closed.